What is up, True Crime World? You're here with Luminol on the Wall. I'm Becky.
And I'm Bevy. And welcome to our True Crime podcast and our weekly sister chat. What's going on, Beck?
Oh, well, not like a ton, but I figured this might be the perfect podcast to tell you about my new obsession right now. Musically, of course.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Okay.
Tell me.
The song is called Death Grip by
Oh my god.
The Ghost Inside.
Is this the one you sent me? Like,
well, it's on
it's
my
not,
dog
okay.
walk. No, very different genres.
Okay.
Very different. This one, I think you would be like, why did you send this to me, Becky? And I'd be like, oh, it was probably the wrong person.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah.
Is it like more metal?
Yes, Bev. It is. I was listening to it just like on repeat in my car. First of all, it has a great drop. I'm going to have to just show it to you so you can hear the drop. So you only have to listen to like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I need to hear that.
Yeah, it's a great drop and like literally like, you know, headbanger.
Headbanger.
Yeah. It just like gets you in that mood. And you'll see why this is kind of like fitting for this podcast specifically. So if we have any listeners that like metal or are at least very diverse in their music, go listen to it. It is
Say it again. Yeah.
Death Grip, The Ghost Inside.
Nice.
Yeah, but
okay.
to be warned, it is metal. Heavy metal. So anyways, if you want to connect with me on an emotional level, go listen to it.
Classic. I was gonna say it's just funny because I don't know if we've talked about this enough, but Becky and I are like complete opposites. Just our personality, like we connect on so many things.
So
but
many.
then so many. Like we're very similar sense of humor, like very similar. Just like we're so similar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we are also somehow the polar opposites in like terms of our temperaments, like things we tend to like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, for example, you've obviously, if you are an avid listener, you know that I tend to like Christian music and I like to listen to like slow songs that make your heart like explode. And Becky likes to listen to like metal and like intense music. She also likes a good ballad, but you know.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny. She also likes like rock.
Yeah, I like alternative. I like, honestly, anything that can be catchy. I don't care what genre it is, like even country. There are some songs that, you know, I really like.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Must Be the Whiskey. Do I recall Cody something? Anyways, it's enjoyable. I like that. But, you know, it's my least favorite genre, that's for sure. Don't hate me.
Or the other one, have you ever tried cocaine?
You got me, Bev. Not a clue.
No, you do. You listen to it with me, you little hoe.
Oh, shit.
Or, 'cause I've never tried cocaine.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I've been thinking about it 'cause the whiskey's tasting watered down.
Wow, you sound really...
I love that song.
You sounded really beautiful right there.
Did I?
Yeah, like, I actually remember the song when you started singing it. Like, whoa, girl, back up.
Oh, that was sweet.
Ooh. Do I have
I've been singing
shivers?
to my son a lot. No, you don't. Don't lie to me.
You're right. I'm actually just freezing
in
in my basement because the temperature dropped like a mofo. This is where my goosebumps are coming from.
Whenever Craig or you just say, oh, you sounded so good singing or whatever, I just imagine Simon Cowell being like, did your friends lie to you? Your friends are lying to you. You know?
You have bad friends.
Who said you sounded good? I don't know, like my friends, like my family.
My sister and my husband love my
singing. You need to get better friends. You know?
Yes. All right.
Anyways, thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, speaking of singing,
mm-hmm.
Our brother, Axel, just divulged to us that he is wanting to take singing lessons.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Like, legitimate singing lessons, you know? Which I fully support.
Oh, yeah, same.
Because...
he's always loved singing. He's a...
haven't we all?
Lover of singing, like a closet lover, singer lover.
Yes. Yes, he is. I think we all are.
Yeah.
That is something that the three of us share in common, like, for sure. But we're all just like mediocre to not too bad, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
We're just okay.
just okay. But our hearts are big, so we think we're great. Or we
Yeah.
sing with the strength of a million men.
That's right.
Yeah.
And our partners either hate us or love us for it, you know?
You know what JB always says to me? He's like, oh, we're on that again, are we? Mostly because I sing Golden.
I'll sing. Yeah, well, it's all the rage right now.
You know, because it's a fantastic song.
All I know is Craig never says nothing except for when I actually sound good. He's like, oh, that sounded good. And I've heard that like 3 times, Becky.
In your whole life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I used to like practice singing for hours while he watched like football.
Hours.
Anyways,
we
I
love
got
singing.
better. I did get better. Yeah,
you did.
And that's where we're going to end that. We're going to cut the sister chat off here. And we're just going to get right into the case, guys, because it's a gooder.
Okay, before we start, I just want to make a point that it relates to the case,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I like heavy metal. And, you know, a lot of times the words associated in heavy metal are like really dark, you know? Sometimes they're about killing, murder, death, Satan, and a plethora of other things, and love, you know? But I just want to clarify, I'm a good person. Bev's looking at me like I'm crazy. I don't have any evil instincts, nothing like that. And I like metal, and I'm probably one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad you enjoyed that humble pie from the weekend. But yeah, you're pretty good. I'm guessing somebody in this case likes metal and they're psycho.
Yeah, Bev, that's exactly what I'm getting at.
On. Right? You're like,
I'm proving a point.
Don't think of me differently. Right.
Yeah, I don't care if people think of me differently for liking metal. I'm making a point in regards to
that you're not a psycho.
Yes. And that
awesome.
It doesn't matter what music you listen to. It doesn't make you a psycho. You make yourself a psycho. Or other circumstances make people psychos. So that's all I'll say. Carry on.
All right. So today's case, everyone, takes us to Arroyo Grande, California. And in this area of California, Elyse Marie Pahler was born on April 24th, 1980, to her parents, David and Lisanne Pahler. In 1995, Elyse was 15. She was a freshman at Arroyo Grande High School. She was beautiful. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and she was pretty much well liked by all. She was pretty intelligent, creative. She even designed and made her own dresses. And ultimately, she did have dreams to be a performer and an entertainer. Overall, Elyse had a good girl image, but like most teenagers, she had a rebellious side. And on July 22nd of 1995, the Pahler family was watching a movie together when the phone rang, and it was for Elyse. Shortly after her conversation, she decided to excuse herself and went to bed. That phone call had been some of Elyse's friends from school inviting her out. So Elyse decided she was going to sneak out of her house that evening to smoke some marijuana with her friends. Now, this would prove to be a pretty unfortunate decision on Elyse's part because it would be the last time that her parents saw her. Because the following morning, her parents realized that she was not at home. And of course, her parents became pretty worried and called the police. At first, like we see in a lot of cases, the authorities apparently treated Elyse's disappearance as a possible runaway. But of course, a parent's intuition kind of knows better, and both her parents never believed that this was actually a possibility, nor true. They knew Elyse, and this was out of character for her. So David and Lisanne plastered the town with missing person flyers and pursued dozens of leads. A campfire sighting, hitchhiking, girl reports, but they all turned cold. This search went on for weeks, and still nothing, month after month, passed with no trace of Elyse. That was until March 14th of 1996, nearly 8 months after Elyse's disappearance. In a shocking turn of events, a young man named Royce Casey went to his church pastor and confessed to killing Elyse. Shortly after, he was taken to the police and ended up taking detectives to a remote eucalyptus grove on the Nipomo Mesa, less than a mile from Elyse's home. and directed them to the makeshift grave he made. And when authorities dug at the spot that Royce had indicated, they did in fact find Elyse's partially decomposed body. It was a pretty chilling scene for everyone involved. Her remains were still in the clothes she was last seen in. She was face down and covered by the forest debris, and a pentagram was found carved nearby. And as we know, the pentagram is a satanic symbol, hey?
Yeah, we often see it in satanic rituals, crimes that are, promoted through that. Well, I shouldn't say promoted, but like, what word am I thinking of, Bevy? You don't know either. That's great. Crimes that are motivated by satanic rituals and stuff like that, right? There we go. That took a moment.
Exactly. So, obviously, this symbol that they find is evidence of some satanic imagery that was a part of the case, and it would become a big part of the whole investigation. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about what the medical examiner had seen and reported. They confirmed details that Elyse had multiple stab wounds and ligature marks on her neck, which are consistent with strangulation and stabbing. They also noted that she had hemorrhages that indicated she bled out slowly. And in the coroner's words, it was one of the most brutal and horrific murders seen in the county.
And she was only like 15, right? She was still super young. So it's always like, I feel for like the community is always really scary to see that happen too. I mean, it's scary no matter which way you slice it, But when it's like a child,
it always hits a little different,
yeah,
right?
It's that much more horrifying, especially for the community. Like, who could have done this?
Exactly. And of course, at the time they find the body, they do have a suspect, and most likely the murderer, considering Royce did confess to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's kind of crazy about this, I mean, it's always horrifying when someone who's 15 years old or younger dies from homicide. But what's even more crazy to think about is when someone close in age to her or the same age is also the killer. Because Royce himself was only 16 or 15 probably at the time that he committed the crime. And at the time that this investigation was going on, he was only 16. So Royce is taken into custody and detectives have to talk to him and get, the 411 on what the fuck happened. And he told investigators that he and two of his friends named Jacob Delashmut, who was 15, and Joe Fiorella, who was 14, had all killed Elyse. Apparently, all three boys were in a local death metal band they called Hatred and were outspoken fans of heavy metal music. And by 1995.
Could you imagine, Bev?
That's crazy.
Death metal in 1955? No fucking way.
Oh my god, that would be crazy.
Could you imagine it'd be like, Mr. Sandman, burn me on dream. 1955. I don't know why that cracked me up so much.
I mean, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. That's great.
All right. So by 1995, all three boys were immersed in heavy metal culture. They idolized the band Slayer and even patterned their band after that group. Joe had studied Slayer's lyrics as if they held deep meaning. Eventually, he admitted the music started to influence the way he looked at things. Royce was similarly an enthusiastic fan. In a later written statement, Royce said that Slayer's dark, violent lyrics, which glorified murder, Satanism, and horror, made him feel powerful.
All right, Bev, have you ever heard of Slayer?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, at least.
But I've never listened to their music.
Okay, I too have not listened to their music, but I have now because I went and as I was doing my research, I'm like, let's just throw this on in the background. Yeah, it is violent. It's
really,
personally, it was a little like too heavy for me with not enough like catchy moments. And I didn't listen to all their music, so don't hate on me for saying that, Slayer fans, but The 2 songs I listened to be honest. It was a lot. It was
Becky's
too
like,
heavy
I'm
for
done.
me. It was a little too
Yeah.
heavy for me. I think that might be where I draw the line at some death metal. It has to be catchy. Okay? Has to have a good drop or be catchy. That's my rule. But this, to me, it did not. However, I can see how, they thought that it was like really violent and like satanic listening. That I can hear. So, Bev, I would challenge you to go listen to a song or two.
I'm going to have to.
You have to.
I'm going to absolutely have to and just see what's up because honestly, for music to influence people in such a dramatic way to the point of like potentially influencing them to murder another human being, I mean, that's got to be intense. And now I'm not saying it's all the music's fault. I can't say that because there's a lot of music with a lot of different stuff, but music is a part of culture and it is influential for sure, especially for young impressionable minds. So it's not all the music's fault. It's also partly due to like the person itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of factors that go on and their mental state at the time. I don't know, things like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But definitely music is for sure influential. That's why they say like people like country music, people who listen to country music or something have the highest rate of suicide or something. Have you heard of that? That statistic?
No, I can't say that I have. I didn't even know at all. But that is interesting. Is it like why?
I think it's because it talks about depressing shit, Becky.
Well, typically, I guess it does. I guess if you're always listening to that, it'll be like, womp womp.
But here's the catch. It's like, is it the music itself or is it the people that are attracted to that type of music because of their mental state or what's going on in their life, right?
True. You know what? When
So,
I'm a little bit more depressy or, going
mhm.
through rough stuff, do I usually listen to stuff that supports how I'm feeling? Yes. If I'm
Totally.
in an angry state of life, do I listen to more metal? Yes. Because I like to just
Or
scream
if
it
you want
out.
like a good workout. Yeah,
Or a good
totally.
workout, get hyped up,
Yeah.
But if I'm feeling like really happy and bubbly, like pump up the jam, pump it up, it's more like that.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. Yeah. Is it the people's like emotion and they're just drawn to that music because they're sad and depressy, or the music itself,
And
right?
the music reinforces their inner world.
Yeah.
That could be true. Is it the chicken or is it the egg, Rebecca?
That's the question. This is the lifelong question, or at least since the 80s, I think,
Yep.
that people have about music like this.
Absolutely. Well, Becky, there is no doubt that these Slayer songs did resonate with these troubled teens. So,
yeah, no doubt about it.
That's all we really need to know for this case.
Yeah.
They even talked about Elyse being a trophy for the devil. And one of them later wrote, believing she fit the perfect sacrifice described in the music that they obsessed over. Joe, in particular, began to fixate on Elyse. In the months before her disappearance, he reportedly described an obsession with her to his friends. After all, Elyse was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl and a reputed virgin. In their warped vision, she fit the description of a worthy satanic offering. According to Royce's later account, by May 1995, the trio had discussed sacrificing a person to the devil 24 times over the previous 2 months.
That's pretty scary. There's like average boys, 10 in high school, just talking about the perfect human to sacrifice. Just an average conversation amongst teenage boys.
Yeah, seriously.
Jesus.
And it just so happens that Elyse was friendly enough to them and had like a friendly relationship at school that I guess she seemed to be a perfect candidate for them. God.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Right? So yeah, when she gets that call like, hey girl, let's go smoke some weed, she's probably like, hell yeah, friends. Hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, I bet that's what Elyse said for sure.
Yeah, just like that. But let's be real. Someone calls you up and you're obviously a young teenager and for all accounts a pretty good girl, and someone calls you up and is like, hey, let's go be cool and smoke some MJ, man. You're like, oh my God, sweet. Like I'm getting asked to like sneak out, go chill. You know what I mean? Like it's like I don't know, like when I was like 15, 16, whatever, I was like, hell yeah, let's go. The last thing
When
she's
and
thinking
where?
is she's going to be sacrificed to the frickin' devil.
Yeah, that's on almost no one's radar, so.
Right? So obviously she goes and she joins them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the events of July 22nd unfolded like a nightmare. After dark, Jacob was the one who ended up calling Elyse from a payphone and asked her to join him and the others for some marijuana in the Nipomo Mesa woods. And of course, as we know, Elyse snuck out of her home that night. She was then led to a grove of eucalyptus trees in the fields near Arroyo Grande. The boys apparently had chosen this remote spot as their site for the ritual. And on arrival, according to later police investigation, the trio settled in to smoke and talk. Unknown to Elyse, a belt and a large hunting knife were already in the boys' possession. At some point, Jacob suddenly pretended to need a restroom break, but in reality, he pulled the loop of his belt from his pants and wrapped it around Elise's neck, choking her from behind while she was vulnerable. Royce and Joe held her down and stabbed her. They both inflicted more than a dozen wounds to her neck, her chest, and back. Now, the killing blows were not instantaneous. A forensic pathologist later testified that none of the wounds alone were fatal, so Elyse slowly bled to death on the ground. Apparently, during the attack, Elyse reportedly begged for her mother and for Jesus. Royce later admitted that as she cried and pleaded, he ended the agony with a brutal stomp to the back of her neck. The entire assault lasted mere minutes, but to the three assailants, it was the fulfillment of a dark quest. And after Elyse stopped moving, the grim horror really did not end. The three boys had previously talked among themselves about what they would do after the killing, and in court hearings and probation reports, it emerged that they had discussed committing sexual acts with her body once she was dead. A plan Royce ultimately balked at, saying they should leave her instead. So they did not rape her corpse that night. But they did brag about the murder to each other, even laughing about it in their band practices for days and weeks afterward. Nobody spoke out. At school, the boys maintained their normal facade.
Damn, hey. I have to say, Royce, it almost seems like he was just kind of caught up in this scenario a bit, Bev. And I'll tell you the reasons why I say that is because one, he virtually was like, no, we're not gonna sexually assault her. Like, that's too far for me. And then, like, I don't know if he's like stomped her head because maybe he couldn't listen to her beg and plead for her life and like to Jesus for her mother. I don't know if he was just vicious or it was just like hard for him to listen to.
Hard to hear. He
Yeah,
wanted it
but
to be
like
over.
doing that and then not allowing the other boys to sexually assault her or just kind of be like, no, let's carry on, like move on, leave. You know, it kind of makes me think he has a tiny bit of a conscience. And because he came forward to the police, unlike the other two.
Yeah, there's some stark differences between Royce and the other two.
Yeah.
But regardless, in saying that.
Oh, yeah, he still murdered some girl.
Like, he might have more of a conscience, but let's be real. Like, what they did to her was pretty freaking horrific.
Oh, yeah. Like, regardless.
Now, what's kind of interesting, because as we were saying, it's so horrific, none of the boys had appeared on anyone's radar for violence before this act. Their families were shocked when the details came out. Jacob's father, for example, had no idea of his son's crimes until much later. In fact, after the murder, he even unknowingly drove by the crime scene and eventually picked up the perpetrators without even realizing it. Even the neighbors and church members described the boys as quiet or even mild-mannered, which everyone's perception of the boys just made the crime that they committed all the more horrific and inconceivable. And with the horror of the crime and the confession and the discovery of Elyse's body, the story instantly became a national media story. Reporters pounced on the satanic ritual angle, recalling the 1980s satanic panic era of high-profile cult murder cases. Every single gruesome detail leaked out, and newspapers across the country covered the bizarre case of this death metal obsessed teens.
No, Bev, Did you know that there was this satanic panic in the 80s? Did you know of this?
No.
No? It was even backed by, I forget who was the president of the US at the time, but his wife, whoever it was, I don't clearly know my US presidents, but she like led the way and made it this whole thing about how dangerous metal was and like how it's like basically rotting the brains of our youth and stuff like that. But I feel like every decade has something like that, you know? Like one of ours was totally Harry Potter.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Remember in church, they're like, don't let your children read this witchcraft,
Yeah, I do.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember
Then there
that.
was like, even when we were younger, a lot of people kids weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons that we knew.
Yeah.
Or
'cause
maybe it was just us. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't like a whole nationwide thing going on. I feel like Harry Potter was beloved. But, and so was The Simpsons. But that being said, there's always
Totally.
something that goes on and like the world speculates on how it's affecting the youth.
Mhm.
Like video games, violent video games is another one, right?
Yeah. Remember Grand Theft
Like,
Auto?
is that changing? Yeah.
That was when they talked
even all
about.
the shooter, yeah, Call of Duty, like I'm sure there's more. But yeah, just there's always something that's like they're corrupting the minds of the youth, you know?
You know, I will forever, though, remember the very first time my Grand Theft Auto character picked up a prostitute.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
crazy that was in a video game.
I will never forget that because I was so confused and, you know.
You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, made me weird a little bit. So, I mean, I turned out just fine. But...
Actually, yeah. Just fine. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But it's kind of funny that this is the conversation with regards to this case because Craig and I were just talking about how, to a large extent, the like people in the world nowadays are pretty desensitized to like violence in general.
Yeah.
Like
desensitized. Yeah.
Because like we were watching what's that? The new documentary with Ed, like that.
The
like,
Ed Gein.
The Ed Gein case. And just how, like, I don't know, back then, I don't know, violence was just like, even when World War II was happening and like there was, like, or the Nazis where like information was coming to the United States about what was occurring over there, they were like, you can't like show this. And like, even that was a big to do, you know, whereas like now, I don't know about you, Becky, but like when Charlie Kirk was like shot and it was broadcast obviously all over the internet, that was like to me, it was pretty insane that like everyone saw that happen. Like some guy just got shot in front of everyone and that it was allowed to be online. Like, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Like why wouldn't it be online? But I was like, that was like a murder that we just all saw like firsthand.
Yeah. Oh,
and it's just crazy to think about.
For sure. I think you're absolutely right. I think with all the information like social media, you know, access to the internet, our like modern day society has allowed us to see more things and like desensitize adults, youth, children to like some more horrible things. And I don't know if that's like a good or bad thing. Like I'm more aware that murders are out there and the dangers of being a woman. So I think in some capacity it's actually great. And like also with children, like how much more aware people are of the dangers. But with all that stuff, there's more dangers as well because all this technology is used against us, you know, to take children, to lure children, to bully, murder, catfish, you know?
Yeah.
But
it's a double-edged sword.
Totally.
But yeah, anyways, it's just weird. And Craig and I were just talking about this exact thing. And now we're talking about how, you know, there's the satanic panic era and maybe the video game panic, you know? Who knows, whatever the fuck it is. But there's always something.
Always something.
And in this case,
heavy death metal.
I mean, it kind of reinforces the satanic panic, you know? This case in particular. So
there's obviously some validity to it, to some capacity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be. Obviously, we don't know how widespread it is, but definitely in this case, it was a factor. So, law enforcement described the suspects as formerly popular kids who had descended into occult fantasies. Hearings revealed that they had talked openly afterwards about demonic rewards, boasting that each of them would be rewarded by the devil for the murder, and that Elyse was now the devil's girlfriend. Amid the outrage, the accused boys themselves made occasional media statements, and in a rare Entertainment Weekly interview, Joe Fiorella insisted the music was not the true cause, claiming skeptics needed to know why it happened and that it was a small-town tragedy seeking a scapegoat.
Interesting, hey? What?
So it was just him.
He's the problem, along with the other two, obviously, but...
Now we know. Was it the chicken or was it the egg, Becky?
Is the egg or is the music
chicken?
the chicken or the egg? Because it's not that, apparently.
Yeah. Apparently not.
Yeah, if the music was the chicken, it's obviously the egg is the problem.
That's actually pretty interesting that he came out and said that.
And that he recognizes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, nevertheless, police and prosecution highlighted every satanic and musical link, obviously.
Right.
Detectives especially pointed to Joe's boasts, as he had once said that if they performed a sacrifice, they would be, quote-unquote, going professional with their band. Investigators also noted that Joe's mother had told them Royce and Joseph did engage in sexual acts with the corpse. And friends testified Joseph bragged about returning to the grave.
Say what?
Yeah, like, shocking. Obviously, these allegations are gruesome and graphic. We're talking about necrophilia. But to make it clear, the official accounts say the teens discuss necrophilia.
Not that it happened.
Right. Now, over the next year, the community grappled with the horror that happened in their town. At Elise's funeral, neighbors and classmates wept for the tragic blonde girl who had been murdered by 3 boys that she thought were her friends. Arroyo Grande High School's principal remarked that the town was just completely haunted by the atrocity that took place. And in memory of Elyse, church groups and students sometimes organize candlelight vigils. A metal-free tribute concert was held a few years later as well. Yet, for the Pahler family, obviously nothing was comforting. Now, that being said, obviously getting justice for their daughter is going to be important. So, in early 1997, when the suspects entered the criminal justice system, it must have been relieving for Elise's parents.
Oh, yeah.
Now, by this time, Joe Fiorella had already confessed in detail, and he cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a plea deal. And on March 7th, he pleaded no contest to first-degree murder with special circumstances. He admitted he was the one who first stabbed Elyse, and he received a sentence of 26 years to life for that. A week later, prosecutors charged Royce Casey and Jacob DeLashmutt as adults. They were 18 and 17, respectively, at the time. At a joint preliminary hearing, Casey and DeLashmutt heard Fiorella's grim testimony and the DA's evidence. But rather than face a trial, both boys eventually also took plea bargains. In May, Casey and DeLashmutt each pleaded no contest to murder. They confessed that all 3 of them had jointly killed Elyse during a premeditated ritual. Their bargains carried identical sentences, 25 years to life in prison for each of the 2. Now, as we know, because they all pleaded guilty or no contest, there was no full jury trial. The pleas meant few new facts came out in court, leaving some details in dispute. However, the official record, including police interviews and admissions, were clear on what happened. And a judge accepted the pleas, and Elise's killers were formally convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances, which included torture. Now, right before sentencing, Elise's grandmother testified to the court in tears, saying, "I wish I had known what they were planning." She said, "I would have wrung their scrawny little necks," which is like so badass.
Yeah, you go, Granny.
Go, grandmama.
That's
like,
right.
Come on now. I love that, but like, obviously, right? Like, fuck those boys that took Elyse.
Mm-hmm.
Outside the court, prosecutors warned that the students chose Elyse for her appearance and virginity, making this one of the most brutal and horrific murders that they had seen. The judge's sentencing statements reflected the gravity of the crime. Fiorella got 26 to life, Royce and Jacob got 25 to life, and in each case, the term meant they would serve at least 25 years before being eligible for parole. After sentencing, deputies led the three away to prison. Two of them were tearful and quiet. One, Joe, stood pale and expressionless. So with the criminal cases closed, attention turned to the long road ahead in prison for all of these boys. All three of them retained separate court-appointed attorneys to handle all the inevitable appeals paperwork and the later parole hearings as well. None of them sought to withdraw their pleas, but they had to serve their sentences or formally seek parole after the minimum terms. So obviously having attorneys was important for them. And as the years pass, like we know these boys are pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually they're all going to become eligible for parole. And Elyse's parents and many people in the community watched anxiously as the date for this appeared. And in 2021, 2024, and 2025, so very recently, there were major developments. So let's talk about it. Royce Casey. He, as we know, was the primary confessor. He was the first to confess, and he later fully cooperated with authorities. And by the 2020s, he had served well over 25 years in prison, and he applied for parole multiple times in that time frame. In March 2021, the parole board recommended him for release, but Governor Gavin Newsom overturned it, citing that he had some lack of insight into the crime. Casey filed a habeas corpus petition, and in 2023, a state appeals court ultimately ruled Newsom could rely on the nature of the crime in denying parole. However, that did not stop Royce's attorney because he reapplied. And on the 30th anniversary of the murder, which was July 23rd of this year, Casey was granted parole again by the full parole board. And the governor did not block it this time. And just recently, on August 15th, he walked out of prison and returned to society at age 47. Now, I'll give you some info on this, and maybe it will kind of help you guys out with understanding why he was released. So, in recent years, Casey expressed remorse. He even wrote a 46-page statement to parole authorities detailing the crime and why he felt guilty. His lawyer, who is named Charles Carbone, also says that Casey is a low-risk inmate who spent 3 decades rehabilitating. And even Elyse's father, David, told reporters that he did not oppose Casey's release, noting that Casey's confession ultimately brought closure. So he basically respected him for that. And he did serve 30 years in prison, right?
Mm-hmm. And the one thing we've talked about so many times is like when a child commits a crime, although it's not good, and, you know, if there isn't an intervention of some sort, what else could they have done in their life that was bad, you know? But when they're caught, they're in jail, and they're kind of rehabilitated, some think it is fair for them to go out and live a partial life outside of the prison.
I mean, there's a lot of factors to consider.
Mm-hmm.
When you're that young, obviously your decision-making isn't fully developed. You're willing to take on a lot more risk than you would if you were an adult. So there's that coming into play. Also, if you spend decades rehabilitating yourself and show that level of commitment to changing yourself, I don't know, that I think that shows something. And I believe in rehabilitation for some people, you know, so I do think if he showed that much commitment towards it, I don't know, I kind of like agree with it. He was such a young child when he committed this crime too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I definitely believe that rehabilitation is possible under the right circumstances. And with him, it does seem fairly reasonable.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to Jacob Delashmut. Now, Delashmut's situation is more complicated, but he too served roughly 30 years in prison and first appeared for parole hearings in the early 2020s. He maintained that he was pressured into confessing by Fiorella, Joe, and he claimed intellectual disability in a plea for mercy. In April of this year, Delashmut was quietly released on parole as well, shortly before Royce Casey, and this surprised many people because unlike Casey, Delashmut had been known in prison as unremorseful. Elyse's family lawyer said neither of the other two should ever get out. They had never shown contrition or contrition.
I mean, I feel like that is a huge... We've had, I forget what case it was. It was a little while ago, but one guy showed like no remorse in the parole hearing, and they're like, nope, denied. And it's like, until he actually starts to acknowledge that, he will never be released.
And take accountability.
Yeah, he'll never be released, right? So it is a little unfortunate that to like other inmates, he's unremorseful, and yet he gets released.
Yeah, it is a little bit controversial. Some legal experts and victim advocates question whether his release was legally sound, given obviously the aggravating nature of this murder.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the one to take his belt off and asphyxiate Elyse.
Yep.
That's a pretty intense act. I mean, so was stabbing, but he was the one who initially like had it going on and like was the one who initiated it overall.
Yeah.
And to show no remorse for that is kind of crazy considering, you know, she was like begging for her life and calling out to Jesus through the whole thing. Like, I don't know. That doesn't sit right with me.
Concerning he's out in the public now.
Yeah. And lastly, Joseph Fiorella, who was the youngest of the trio. Fiorella has served least time. He was already 16 at sentencing, technically, and he remains in prison. He recently sought to withdraw his guilty plea and win a new trial, claiming inadequate counsel and raising questions about his intellectual capacity at 15. And as of mid-2025, the courts have rejected those requests. There is, however, an upcoming parole hearing scheduled, but California law bars him from returning to San Luis Obispo County or contacting the Pahler family.
Well, that's good. I wonder if he'll actually get parole.
I mean, given the obviously gravity of the crime and Fiorella's reputation for being cold, many people do expect that he will remain incarcerated for the foreseeable future.
But after Joseph being unremorseful, you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe they will take his, like, being the youngest of the three into account in their decision. But it is kind of crazy to think that these three people took someone's life and 2 out of the 3 currently are, like, living life.
Walking amongst
outside.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least they served their time, you know, like, sometimes people only end up serving like 2/3 of their sentence or sometimes less, you know? So at least 30 years, that's a huge portion of their life to have spent in jail and think about their crimes. And I would assume motivation to not go back there for some.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
Now, we know that Elyse's parents did not oppose Casey's release, but they loudly objected to any leniency for Delashmut or Fiorella. They argued that nothing should excuse such brutality. And I think the difference here is that they just showed no remorse. They didn't show any intent to really confess on their own volition. So I think that is the difference here. Like, for example, in Royce Casey's written statement, he acknowledged that the victims and their families deserve justice, saying the knowledge that she was dying must have been horrifying and she must have been in immense spiritual turmoil and pain. So you can kind of see, like, Royce, it does show that he has truly thought and empathized with Elyse and what he put her through and what he put the family through. So I just think there is that difference, especially when it comes to the victims' families and how they feel about said people getting released from prison. It's like someone is genuinely sorry, someone genuinely regrets their decisions, and the other two kind of are like, get me out of this prison cell. I'm good. I've done my time.
Yeah.
Like there's just such a difference in the feelings of the two.
100%.
Now, obviously, the Pahler family's feelings about the situation have always been pretty raw. Elise's dad wrote in a 2017 court filing, "The pain of losing my daughter and knowing she suffered will never leave me." Lisanne Pahler, Elise's mother, also suffers from PTSD and depression to this day due to the crime against her daughter. Obviously, when you lose a loved one, the grief could probably be immensely overwhelming and affect every facet of your life. Like we heard it from David Pahler's own mouth, her father, that the pain that he feels every day will never leave him. And you can see by Lisanne Pahler's mental health that it will never leave her either. You know, after her murder, their family was just shattered and their lives were shattered. It was said that in the first 3 years after the murder, Elise's dad lost his construction business, that the family lost their home, and they also lived at welfare at times. They said that their family was just numb with grief. Both of them have struggled with mental health. David publicly admitted he feels guilt for not checking on Elyse that night, and every anniversary of the murder and each parole hearing dredged up just fresh agony for all of them. The Pahlers ended up moving away to try and rebuild, but the loss of their daughter still completely haunts them. What's also sad, and something maybe we don't always think about, is that the siblings of a murdered child also are deeply affected by the loss, because not only do they lose their sister, but they also, in a sense, like kind of lose the parents that they once had and just the family dynamic that they once had. And Elise's younger brother, who's now an adult but was 12 at the time, testified at parole hearings how the murder destroyed their childhood safety. As we know, like the family kind of went through hard times after that, right?
Oh, yeah. They went through the ringer, hey?
Yeah. Now, I want to kind of switch gears from talking about Elise's family. I do kind of want to address the mental health of the teens who did commit this murder, because there was some things that are worth noting. So apparently, the courthouse news story from 2025 includes excerpts from Royce's own journal, where he had said that he was an angry, isolated teen who felt alienated and found a brotherhood in metal. He also acknowledged that factors like loneliness and drug use played a role alongside the music in what he did to Elyse. Jacob's father, interviewed years later, claimed that he noticed his son had withdrawn in the months before the crime, although he never suspected that thoughts of violence were occurring. Fiorella's family has largely stayed out of the spotlight, though his mother later said he was a good kid until he changed suddenly.
So, although these boys seemed pretty, like, normal to the people around them, like teachers, like students, friends like that, they were actually all suffering to some degree that probably pushed them in this direction, on top of maybe potentially them, or at least one of them, being fairly evil.
Yeah. I mean, obviously with crimes, mental health does play a factor, and obviously a couple of them were going through some stuff at the time. So I don't want to justify what they did and just like completely blame it on mental health, but it is just like worth noting that sometimes these things, like you could see a difference in your child and their behavior or how they interact with the world if they might be going through something. And we could all potentially notice the signs if we pay enough attention, if we talk about it, and hopefully prevent crimes like this that are so senseless from happening in the future. So I just think it's something important to talk about and maybe look for in your own teens if you have them at home.
Yeah.
After the murder, the Pahlers became advocates against the overt marketing of violent music to youths. They also participated in studies and spoke out about how easily children can be influenced by the media. In 2000, they sued the band Slayer and its record label, arguing that the music's graphic lyrics and imagery had driven the murder. The lawsuit that they came up with claimed that the defendants had unlawfully marketed obscene content to minors and intending to incite violence. And the case did go to trial in 2001 with intense coverage. David Pahler testified that Slayer's songs were like feeding a child a little poison every day. In the end, however, the judge dismissed the lawsuit on First Amendment grounds. Slayer's drummer Paul Bostaph told Guitar World magazine that blaming music was nonsense. Still, the case was one of the first of its kind and is often cited in legal debates about media influence. And obviously, this speaks to what we had talked about earlier. Is it the chicken or the egg? And as we've kind of heard about the boys' mental health, there was some things going on and such. So I don't want to say it's completely the music either.
Well, I think the majority of people that do listen to that music are not going off and killing people is the one argument I could make, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's all about the other factors and things coming together to create this really vicious circumstance, you know?
Yeah.
And if these young boys were in better mental health conditions, maybe not smoking a ton of pot, shit like that,
Yeah.
they could have listened to that music and just been like the coolest, raddest guys.
Yeah.
And this murder may have never happened, but, you know, mental health.
Yeah.
Adds some like
I
demonic
don't
music.
I think it's definitely, like you said, a concoction of a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So with all that being said, a young girl tragically lost her life. And we hope that the boys, or I guess men now, who have been released from prison, stay on the straight and narrow and do not reoffend, and hopefully contribute to society in a positive way.
Let's hope.
All right, Becky. Well, this was the case of Elyse Pahler. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing.
I love you hugely.
Oh, love you too, girl.
And just your weekly reminder to download our weekly episodes, follow us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and give us a follow on our social medias. You can find us at Luminol on the Wall. Can't wait till next week.